Anytime I'm asked by a younger beginner poet what they can do to improve their poetry, I always, and I mean always, tell them to develop their muscle for describing things. And a great way to describe things vividly is through the form of comparison. Two poetry devices tackle this primarily: similes and metaphors. So similes are comparisons that are made through the use of the words like or as. So here's some cliche examples of similes that I think will help let the idea sink in. As good as gold, strong like an ox, light like a feather, as sly as a fox, right? Yes, corny, overused, sure, but you can see how you can make comparisons through the words like and as. However, I don't want you thinking that similes in and of themselves are cliche. There's plenty of cliche examples, but you can obviously create your own original ones that are very clever and well thought out. So here's an example from my original poem, Ode to Poets.
There's the dude whose dope lines are like a dose of both Prozac and blunt force trauma against trauma. A sage of the stage helped me paint my bars as black as mama, as black as Mamba, black like Wakanda, as black as Panther, as black as Chakra.
Now, there are different kinds of similes, and it's important to keep these in mind when you want to spice up your writing or create a mosaic of different techniques. So there's hybrid similes. These are where you use both like and as opposed to just one or the other for a comparison. So here's an example, once again, from my poem, Ode to Poets.
No one cures my writer's block quite like AJ. No one fixes it as lightning quick as McQueen.
Then there's obscure similes. These are comparisons with like or as, where the meaning behind the comparison is not evident until context or explanation is provided. So I actually do this in my poem Family Tree, where I say,
because in a way, I felt lost too. Like I was the prince from Coming to America, who knew how important finding the right woman for marriage was. He felt lost until he found his black queen in Queens, New York. Now you and I have found ourselves here in Queens, New York. And after we wed in court, we'll take trips to the motherland.
Okay, so I said, I felt lost like the prince from Coming to America. How was he lost? He felt lost until he found his black queen in Queens, New York. Obscure similes are very effective in arousing the curiosity of the reader or listener. Specifically because they hear it, they're like, okay, I don't know how the comparison makes sense. Let me keep listening to see how it makes sense. And then sure enough, there's a payoff in the end, okay? Metaphors, on the other hand, do not use the words like or as for the comparison the way similes do. Metaphors equate one thing to something else by saying this is that. Now, is this literally that? No. Metaphors are very symbolic in nature in comparing two things, but they do provide a stronger comparison by saying that these two are the same as opposed to being similar to one another. So similes, similar. Metaphors, equal sign. Does that make sense? All right, so let me give you some examples of cliche metaphors that I would not advise you using. I am the peanut butter to your jelly. I get it. You're trying to say we complete each other. I've heard it 1,000 times. Not very effective. Another example, which actually comes from scripture, would be you are the potter, I am the clay. Right? You're trying to say that you molded me into who I am. Great message. At the end of the day, it's been used so many times in so many songs and so many poems. Try to come up with another way to go about saying that same thing. So for non-cliche examples of metaphors, here's a sequence of metaphors that come from my poems. Have you ever seen a black sunrise, viewed a new moon as it wears the sun's crown, or beheld a black hole as it swallows starlight? Cause I have, many times before while watching Obsidian ballers score on hardwood floor. This sport, this league would not be at its current peak were it not for the black mountaineers who drug it to the top. Each one a son who rose the way a rose grows from concrete. And just like there's different types of similes, there's different type of metaphors as well. Okay, so there's the extended or sustained metaphor, where a single metaphor becomes a foundational theme or reoccurring element of the entire poem. So an example comes from the duet poem Family Tree that I referenced before.
He was a king, with every royal right to be proud of his Igbo lineage, with every rational reason to wear Iseluku like a crown, but the weight of childish insults felt just as heavy as the honorable heritage he carried on his shoulders. I became ashamed of my culture until I got older and learned that there's power in knowing where I come from, a luxury that's not afforded to everyone.
I, a queen, now embrace the richness and beauty of my skin, but still feel as though something is missing. As if I belong to a lost tribe waiting to be found again.
And right there you see that the sustained or extended metaphor was the concept of royalty or lineage, right? And here's another from that same poem.
Because if you ask me where my people is from, I'll probably tell you how my branch is connected to a tree with roots that reach Louisiana, Michigan, and Mississippi. But to claim a tribe in Africa? Nah. You see, the knowledge of my roots don't go that deep.
Deep are my roots, traveling deeper than Texas, deeper than Delta State. I mean as deep as Isele. When I say my roots are deep, I mean as deep as Uponu, as deep as Odor. And when I say my roots, Lize, I also mean yours.
And then there's obscure metaphors. These, just like the obscure similes, make comparisons where the meaning of the comparison is not obvious until further explanation or context is provided. Using obscure metaphors, just like with the obscure similes, provides temporary confusion that results in ultimate satisfaction when the confusion is cleared up about why you compared this to that. Okay? So I actually do this in my poem God Math. His life was a 4D model that teaches us how to treat our neighbor like a brother. Christ's love was known to be 4-dimensional before 4D was a known thing. If you don't believe me, just read Ephesians chapter 3 verses 14, 15, and beyond to see that the Apostle Paul would fall to his knees and pray to the Creator of all things that we would all perceive the length, width, height, and depth of the love of Christ. Now you can actually mix similes and metaphors. You don't have to just stick to using one in a poem or just using the other. You can mix them both within the same comparisons, literally. Check it out.
The people who hurt us were just people. Don't get me wrong. I'm aware that they moved like they were werewolves wearing sheep costumes. Yeah, but they were still just people. Simply tools that were used by a much greater evil. The monsters we battle are not human persons, but curses, serpents, demons, behemoths, giants like Goliath and Leviathans.
So here's a quick exercise. I'm going to say a few phrases and I want you to determine whether it is a simile, a metaphor, or neither. She was as fast as a leopard. I'm the Michael Jordan of poetry. Depression is the monster that lives inside of my head. My dad looked like a giant to me when I was a child. Lakes are nature's swimming pools. John Smith is a doctor that lives in Houston, Texas. People usually like the smell of roses. If makeup is paint, her face is a canvas. So yeah, hopefully with this video you understand the difference between similes and metaphors. Now if you want to develop your poetry skills in other areas as well, I have a whole playlist just for you.